Hi, I'm Carl Taylor, and in this video I'm going to review the new BenQ SW321 color calibrated monitor against the legendary EIZO CG318.
Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Use coupon code CARL to get a 10% discount.
Now, before we start this video and look at these two monitors, I just need to give you all the sort of legal disclaimer stuff. So first of all, we have not been paid by BenQ or EIZO for this video, but BenQ's PR company that sent us this SW321 monitor said we could keep it either way, and I said, well, if we do a review on it, it's going to be an honest review. And if you don't like it, we'll send the monitor back if you like. So that's basically the deal. Now, let me tell you straight off the bat, let's get straight down to business. This BenQ SW321C is an excellent monitor. I'm actually very, very impressed with what it delivered. Now, I'm going to go over my basic thoughts about the monitor and notes after using it. And just to be clear here, the guys in my video editing team, they've been using the monitor for a couple of weeks, playing around with it, using it for video editing, and they were very impressed with it. And then I took the monitor and I've been using it side by side with my EIZO ColorEdge 318, and I was very impressed with it as well. But there are a couple of caveats in that we're going to come to. Now, I've made a list of notes as well as the specs, because there's a lot of specs to remember and all that sort of stuff. But let's focus first of all on the important things about this screen. So first of all, it delivers a really good image. We've got the BenQ monitor on the left here. We've got the EIZO on the right. Now, I say it delivers a really good image. It doesn't deliver a really great image out of the box. So if you just turn it on and put it in the Adobe RGB profile without calibrating it, it's an all right monitor, but it is a monitor that is designed to be calibrated, and it doesn't come with the calibrator. So we used my own X-Rite i1 display calibrator to calibrate the monitor. Now, this is really interesting with the calibration process. BenQ have their own calibration software that they include with the monitor, and it's called Palette Master. And it's interesting, it's quite a nice interface, and you know, it's easy to follow and easy to use. But you've got a number of options for either a small patch or a medium patch or a large patch calibration set. And it's basically like the level of calibration you want to give it, like a long calibration process or a short one. I don't understand why the short and medium ones are there, because it's just ridiculous to calibrate a monitor not as well as you could calibrate it. So the large patch calibration basically gives you a more accurate calibration. So I think they should really, you know, anyone who wants calibrated monitors and accurate color, they want the best. So, you know, we'd all go for the large patch, but it's not quite clear exactly what you should choose unless you know what you're on about. And then further to that, I ran the BenQ large patch calibration. It was definitely much better than their small patch calibration, but the results weren't amazing with that. They were good, but they weren't amazing. So what I did was I switched to the X-Rite software for the i1 display calibrator, and I used X-Rite software to calibrate the monitor, and that is actually a far more in-depth, longer calibration, and that gave a much more accurate result. So what I have on screen right now is via the X-Rite iDisplay calibration and their software, and that's what I would say to you. The good thing is that if you are buying one of these monitors, and we're going to come to price afterwards, but if you are buying one of these monitors, you have to buy a calibrator with it for it anyway. And if you buy a calibrator for it, you get the software, the calibration software, say from X-Rite or Spider, or whoever you use. So I would recommend using the better calibration software. So the BenQ calibration did okay, but only when you chose the large patch method. It was slightly, ever so slightly on the green side, and it was much better. It went a little bit warmer with the X-Rite calibration. Now, let's move on to it with its best calibration. So once I had calibrated the monitor with the X-Rite software, I found the image to be very, very pleasing. The tonal range, the silkiness, the look, the sharpness and everything else, all very good, albeit slightly redder in the highlights than the EIZO, and slightly yellower, maybe yellower greener in the mid-tones.
After further investigation, we discovered that when using the X-Rite calibration software, you do have further parameters that can be adjusted, but only when you select Custom as the calibration profile. This will then allow you to adjust the white point, hue, and other parameters with a little bit more fine degree. But you can't do this in the BenQ Palette Master calibration software.
In the shadows, everything good. In fact, in the shadows, the BenQ monitor revealed a little bit more detail, possibly because it's slightly lower contrast and has a minute less amount of bite once calibrated. But overall, the similarity in colours was very, very accurate. You could definitely use this for production work, print production, fine art production, no problem at all. As I say, I still think the EIZO's got the edge, but pricing wise, you're going to see there's quite a lot of price for the edge. Other things to do with it are sharpness and resolution. So if we look at the two monitors, they're physically the same size. They both come with a hood. They've got about the same frame size, you know, everything else, sort of physical area that they take up. But the EIZO is a 4096 by 2160 resolution, and the BenQ is 3840 by 2160. So it's not quite as high resolution, but we're talking a very, very minute amount. And what I noticed was that on very fine pitch stuff, like, you know, very small writing on websites or things like that, then the EIZO looked a little bit sharper. But obviously everything on the EIZO was also a little bit smaller because of the resolution. So, you know, text and fonts and things appeared a little bit smaller. Uniformity on the BenQ, superb, really, really good, even right around to the edges, and as you'd expect on the EIZO. You know, in my opinion, EIZO make the best monitors, but they are also some of the most expensive. But this BenQ has performed really, really well on uniformity and edges. Resolution from a retouching point of view, absolutely superb. You know, zooming in on the image, I've got a high resolution file here that I've retouched, but the detail on the screen, on the skin, everything else is just, you know, superb. Nothing to complain about there. I could happily retouch all day long on that BenQ. And it's interesting, as I said, about, you know, the slight variances in the highlight tones compared to the mid-tones. If we look at a different image that's got a slightly different sort of coloration to it, let me just find that same image on here. You can see slightly warmer in some areas on the skin tones, but then slightly different in other areas as well in the highlights. But overall, really, really nice, a really pleasing look to it. So I'd be very, you know, I'm going to be actually very happy to keep this monitor and for someone in our team to use it. So for retouching purposes, absolutely amazing. Now, we've spoken about the calibration and the profiling process, which has to be done via a separate external one. That plugs into a USB port on the back of the monitor, and they've got a little hatch at the top of the monitor so that you can feed the calibration thing through to put it on the screen. So that's quite a nice touch. However, I've got to say, I really don't like calibrating monitors. It's a bit of a nuisance. You've got to remember to do it. I know it reminds you to do it, but with the EIZO one, it's got its built-in calibrator that pops down and it just does it every 200 hours. And it usually does it when you're not even there or aware of it. So it's fantastic. It's a sort of fire and forget option with the EIZO. But saying that, when it comes to price, let's look at the price differences. We're talking about £1,600 for the BenQ. That's about $2,100. I saw it on B&H at the moment. But on B&H, the CG318 is $4,000. So, you know, it's double the price for the EIZO one. In pounds, the EIZO is about £3,500. and as I say, £1,600 for the BenQ. Now at this point it should be mentioned that the CG318 has now been replaced by the CG319X. However, the CG319X panel, as far as I can tell from all my sort of research on it, it's exactly the same panel. There's no differences in the gamut range on Adobe RGB or DCI-P3. It's all there. Brightness levels on the CG319X are all the same. So there's nothing other than some of the input ports are probably expanded on the CG319X. The CG319X, interestingly, is still £3,500 in the UK, which is what the CG318 was running at. But it seems in the USA, the CG319X is running at $5,700. So if you were buying like for like the latest EIZO CG319X against the BenQ SW321, you're talking a difference of $2,100 compared to $5,700. That's a significant price difference, as you can see. Now, in regards to the inputs on the monitors, they're both very similar. They've got a bunch of USB inputs. They've got a bunch of HDMI and SS USB, and they've got the some USB-C inputs as well. They've got what you need. One of the extra features on the BenQ is that it's got an SD card reader on the side, which I find a bit unusual because, I mean, I don't really see I'd use the SD card reader on a monitor. I mean, some people that have used iMacs may be used to one. Obviously, I've got a SD card reader on my MacBook. To give you an idea, transferring the data from an SD card on the BenQ monitor took about 15 seconds, and the same SD card only took 3 seconds to transfer the data directly into a MacBook Pro. So a lot faster in the MacBook Pro than in the SD card on the monitor. But hey, if you want to use the one on the monitor, it's convenient, you know, there is one there. The button features on the BenQ and navigating the menus I found really easy, really nice navigation, very easy to use buttons on the front, similar to the EIZO, except these have got protruding buttons, whereas the EIZOs are just these small touch ones. They've also supplied this strange little puck thing here, which you can use instead of the buttons, and you can pre-program some of your favorite, like, you know, calibration 1, 2, and, you know, various parameters in there, and use the puck if you want. Only one other sort of main difference in the profiles available to you. The EIZO has Rec 2020 profile. The BenQ does not. It has Rec 709. This is more specialist for, you know, video work, more niche. For photographers, all the profiles that you want to use, they're there. That's absolutely fine. In terms of the specs, I've got the spec list here. Let's just go over a couple of things. They're both IPS type panels, LED backlit. The size of the physical size of them is about the same. As I said, the resolution 4096 on the EIZO, 3840 on the BenQ. Native contrast, I think, was 1500 to 1 on the EIZO and 1000 to 1 on the BenQ. But in terms of how it looks really good. You can't really notice a great deal. The EIZO looks, you know, got it's got a little bit more bite, but the BenQ looks like it's got a little bit more detail in the shadows after calibrating. The gamut of sRGB is 100% on the BenQ, it's 100% on the EIZO, it's 99% of Adobe RGB on both of them, or claimed to be. And on the P3, what have we got on the P3? 98% on the EIZO, and 95% listed as on the SW321. So overall, the BenQ has performed really, really well, especially for something that is half the price of the EIZO. It's not quite as perfect as the EIZO, but it is damned close for a monitor that at this price point to deliver that level of quality. So I have to say, very impressed with the BenQ for what it is money-wise, and it actually performed far better than I thought it would.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Carl to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.